Okay, so I don't know how long some of you have been subscribed to my YouTube channel, but I used to make these rant videos that were like very rantish, where I just talk about random stuff for, I don't know, however long I could. Usually not that long because I had the YouTube limit back then. But anyways, that's not my point. My point is I'm going to start something new and exciting, or I don't know. Basically, I'm going to call this the MML Rant. Yes, the MML Rant. And what the MML Rant is I'm going to rant about something for as long as I want to. So, I don't know how many of you will actually want to listen to these rants, but I just want to rant about them anyway, because that is what I like to do. I like to rant. And I don't see the point in ranting about something when it doesn't make sense to rant about it. So, I'm going to rant. I'm not going to do this intro, like, talk about me actually doing this that long, because I want to get right into the topic, because I don't want someone who's actually interested in the topic that's at the title of this rant, but you know, whatever. This could actually turn into like a podcast or something. I don't even know. I'm not even sure how well edited this is going to be. If it's a video, I don't know. I'm just recording this now because it's relevant. Because let's see. So what I'm going to talk about today is about the Sonic the Hedgehog series, and this particular series greatly pisses me off, and And it's for a very specific reason, and that specific reason is because it's a complete knockoff. The entire series is a knockoff. At first, it was a knockoff of the Mario series, and second off, it was a knockoff of Dragonball Z. And I just can't forgive it for that. I'm sorry, but I can't. There are so many things that have been taken from the series just aren't original at all. And so there are all these people that are like, Sonic is the best thing ever. Oh, and like specifically the Shadow fanboys. Hate the Shadow fanboys. Oh no, or the fangirls too. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, yeah, I'm just saying fanboys because I don't know, male superiority, whatever. But seriously, like, oh my god. And they just keep going on and on how it's like the best series ever, and how, you know, Sonic 06 was an okay game, and how, you know, Sonic Unleashed, the Werehog sections may have been a little bit tedious, just a little bit, but it's still the best game ever. And it just is so annoying, because what people fail to realize is that the entire series, the entire concept behind Sonic the Hedgehog was stolen. Stolen. So where do I start? I'll start with Sonic 1, to be honest, and Sonic 1 was actually a pretty decent game. I never played it myself, just because of the fact that I haven't, but I've seen enough about it, and I know enough about it. This isn't about the level design. The level design may have been good, and I will admit the 2D Sonics seem to be very well made, but it's not the levels, it's not the game itself for the 2Ds that really make me angry. It's just the fact that Sega just had to have something that came up with Mario, and so they decided, let's take a hedgehog, let's make him really fast, and what should he fight against? Okay, Evil Doctor. That's really original. Come on, that's really, really stupid. The fact Dr. Robotnik overall is not a very powerful character in the games, because of the fact that he's just some evil guy that wants to make robots. He wasn't like Bowser. Bowser was cool, because Bowser was this turtle, and if you read the description in the NES instruction book for Super Mario Brothers, he had his dark magic. He turned all the toads into blocks, and it was like really cool. I mean, they never did it in game just because the NES didn't have that kind of capability, but I mean, come on, dark magic turning mushroom people into blocks, that is pretty original. You have to give Nintendo some credit. Even though they couldn't do it in the game, you have to give them some credit for that really interesting story. I mean, no one reads instruction booklets, but if you read the story in the instruction booklet, it's just like the evil turtle, the evil Koopa Kingdom use their dark magic powers to turn all of the toads of the Mushroom Kingdom into blocks and bricks. and Mario must go on a quest to rescue the princess, who is the only one that can break the magic spell. It's actually pretty good. I like it because I've never heard any fairy tales of someone turning into a block, let alone a mushroom race turning into a block. I thought it was pretty original. I'm sorry, I think it's original. Dr. Robotnik and the Sonic story, not so much. I mean, yeah, he turned the animals into robots. That's kind of reminiscent of Toads turning into blocks. But, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just the 21st century perspective, and maybe people ripped off of Sonic. I don't know. I mean, I'm giving it a little bit of credit here. There are counter arguments to what I'm saying. I'm just saying, this is just what I believe. It's just my rant. But seriously, like, I don't know. Just the fact androids were thought of long before Sonic the Hedgehog. I'm sorry, taking people and turning them to half robot, and then whatever. And people have had this conception with a new change in technology that robots were gonna take over the world. It's like the coolest thing back then. Forget all those zombie movies and vampire well, Twilight, but forget all those zombie movies and. Then you get something along the lines of robots taking over the world. And it was just really cool. And I don't know. I mean, I don't watch shows from the 80s. I'm not that old. I'm really not. But I mean, it just doesn't seem as original as mushroom people turning into blocks. I don't know. Just me. I will admit that there was some elaboration onto this story, and the one series of Sonic that I can give a huge amount of props to is the TV show, not Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, not Sonic Says, if someone touches you in an inappropriate spot, run away, and that was dumb. But the Sonic SatAM series, that is a show that I can greatly respect, and I really like that show, to be honest. It was a very nice show because what they did is they took a series that was very simple, like Sonic, and they turned it into a very, very intriguing story, one that kept going on, and it was always exciting to see what happened next. It was a great job done by Ben Hurst, I think his name. No, maybe that was the voice for Sonic. I can't remember. I don't know people that well. Ben Hurst might have been the voice for Sonic. I apologize. Whoever created that show, huge props to you, because that story is fantastic. Dr. Robotnik was turned into a really elaborate character, rather than just being someone that, just is some evil doctor. He has taken the entire world and turned it into his robot legion. He wants to conquer the world, and he will do it nothing to stop. He is a dark character. He is not crazy, he isn't anything like that. He's just purely dark, he's purely evil, and he's not holding anything back. And it's not like anything like the Eggman we see today, but I'm not going to get into that yet because I'm going to keep talking. But yeah, wow. And then the thing I really liked, to be honest, was the fact that they elaborated on the animal friends. Because at the end of the Sonic games, when you go and you just beat the level, you landed on the switch thing. I can't remember if this is Sonic 1 or 2, because they did create the sign thing, or maybe that was after you defeated the robots. Like I said, never played the game, so I don't know the gameplay that well. But I do know at some point you jump on a switch and the animals come free, and that's when you're like, oh, there's animals. And I think that when you kill Eggbot, then you see the animal fly away. I don't know. I haven't played the game, so sorry about that. But I have not played the 2D Sonic games. Whatever. Point is that all the animal friends became their own individual characters, most notably Sally, who was the love interest of that show. And that show, Sally was a love interest, and she was the leader of the group of people. It wasn't just Sonic in that TV show. It was Sonic, it was Sally, it was Antoine, who was the cowardly one, and he was always your comic relief. You have Rotor, who's the walrus, and he's the builder guy, although later on Tails plays a more vital role in the building, although that really took over more in the comics. I'll talk about the comics later once again. And then you got Tails, who's the little guy, aspires to be the good guy but isn't quite there, and he's the trainee kind of thing. And there was no one else. There wasn't no Amy. There wasn't none of those. There wasn't no Big the Cat. All those bad characters. It was just Sonic, Tails, and then a bunch of Sonic, Tails, Eggman, and then a bunch of characters that were created out of those animal buddies. And to be honest, those characters are the most well-designed characters in the Sonic franchise. Sorry about that, Shadow fanboys, but sorry, Antoine's a more powerful character than Shadow. What? Did I just say that? I'm sorry. And also in the show, you have things like his Uncle Chuck, and that's a very powerful thing. That's a huge motivation behind what he's doing. It's not just, I'm going to blindly defeat evil for no apparent reason. Sonic has a reason for doing what he's doing. It's not, I'm going to be just that guy that goes up and saves everyone. There's a reason behind it. His own uncle got turned into a robot. That's very powerful stuff, and his parents too. It's a humongous motivation for going and standing up against him, especially when you have the gift known as super speed, and that's, a very powerful thing. So the show was great, and I really liked the show, and I'm sad that the third season was never made. But then the creator died, and I guess the show died along with it. And it was really sad because that last episode was a very good episode, and it left us on a cliffhanger. And there's no real telling of what would have happened next because, to be honest, the comics kind of ruined it. Sorry to say. So we'll never know what happens next in that story, and it's really kind of sad because all we really know is what happens in the games, and the games aren't good. They're not. I'm sorry, but they're not. So, now that I'm done talking about the TV show, I guess I'll move into the 3D Sonics, because, I guess I could keep going, because in Sonic 2, Tails was introduced, and, he was actually pretty cool, because he's like the Sonic that can fly. He was at that point, they didn't really have character development. It was just the gameplay, everything. Sonic 3 was the first one to really have a good, have the cutscene kind of thing. So it had a more in-depth story with the Master Emerald and all that, and I'll talk about the Chaos Emeralds later. But I thought it was really cool how in Sonic 3 they I've seen the opening cutscene. I haven't played the game. I've never played any of the 2D Sonics. I really should, to be honest. But how Sonic and Tails, Sonic's standing on the side of the plane, Tails is flying in, and then Sonic jumps up and turns into Super Sonic, and then he flies in, and then Knuckles just like, nope, and just punches him, and then he falls down. I thought that was pretty good. That was pretty good by Sega. I do respect that. It's just like, yep, new character, really powerful. You better watch out for him. And then Knuckles takes the Chaos Emeralds, and we don't know why. And then, let's see, Sonic and Knuckles was basically the rest of Sonic 3, although Sonic 3 had a deadline and it was too long, couldn't fit on one cartridge. They're like, okay, we'll make 2 cartridges, have the load-in thing. That was pretty original. I love how they just do that for one game, just because they think their game is that good. Then the Sega CD comes out, and then the only really good game on the Sega CD was Sonic CD. And that introduces 2 new characters, Metal Sonic and Amy Rose. I hate Amy Rose. I really do. I'm sorry, but I'll get into that when we get into 3D Sonic. In 2D Sonic, she's okay. She's just like fangirl, gets kidnapped, kind of like, damsel in distress kind of thing, whatever. You need a reason to do something, Okay, damsel in distress, not just blindly defeating evil anymore. That's an improvement! Yay! So then you have Amy, and yeah, so that was pretty good. Sonic CD, that was a new concept too. The past, present, future, good gameplay, solid gameplay. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't know. Some people hate the 2D Sonics. I would think they're pretty good. I haven't played them really. Actually, a little bit. I played Sonic Advance on the GBA, and I admit that's actually pretty good. I haven't beaten it because I suck at that. I suck at that game. But I will admit the 2D Sonics are pretty well designed, so I can say that from playing Sonic Advance on the GBA. So I'm not blindly ranting here. You know what I mean? I think people sometimes think that when someone makes an argument and they haven't actually played the game, they don't have a powerful argument. Where in actuality they do have a powerful argument. You know what I mean? It's like there's a difference between someone from I don't know, Japan that says Obama's a bad president, and then someone from the U.S. who isn't particularly interested in politics, but yet understands the implications of universal health care, and then it's like, nope, Obama's a bad president. That's different, you know what I mean? At least you live in the U.S. At least I've seen what Sonic is. It's not like I'm in some other country, never touched a Sonic game, don't know the stories at all, but I'm just like, nope, not, don't like him. Because I have a pretty elaborate argument here. I've been talking for 15 minutes already, so you have to give me some credit. Come on. So anyways, 3D Sonics. Not talking about Sonic 3D Blast. Nope. Now, Sonic Adventure. That's the first real game that has a story. That story revolves around Chaos, and Chaos is a sort of water entity kind of thing that came from the Chaos Emeralds. I've watched Sonic X, have not played Sonic Adventure because I didn't have a Dreamcast or anything like that, so I just never wanted a Dreamcast. So, no Dreamcast for me, but I did watch Sonic X, so that allows me to know the story, and Sonic X did a very good job of taking the story, because I've seen people say that the story is pretty much the same, although there's other reasons why Sonic X is a bad anime, and that's Chris and every human in the show. But, so anyways, Chaos, and he's like a watery kind of entity that comes out of the Chaos Emeralds, and he can be like unleashed. And my relation to this is they stole that from Dragon Ball GT with the Shadow Dragon. And no, not the Shadow Dragon. The Shadow Dragon Balls are different. The Black Star Dragon Balls. I'm talking about the dragons. Yeah, the Shadow Dragons. That's exactly what they're called. In GT, at the end of the show, when they fight a dragon for each Dragon Ball because they've used them too much, and it creates a lot of dark energy from using the Dragon Balls every time. If you've watched GT, you know what I'm talking about. The story for GT is very interesting, and by interesting I mean not very well put together. But still, it was stolen from GT. And GT did exist in Japan at the time, I'm pretty sure. If that isn't the case, then GT stole from Sonic Adventure. I don't care. They're both pretty bad. Sonic Adventure was a pretty solid game, though. I will give it that, gameplay-wise. I mean, I've seen enough of it to tell that it's a pretty solid game, gameplay-wise. But like I said, I'm not talking about the gameplay here. I'm mostly talking about the story. You can make a solid game, but when if you're trying to make a good story, then you can't. You know what I mean? If you're basing a game off of a story, then the story has to be good. It's like say, take something like Super Mario Sunshine. It was great gameplay-wise, and it is great gameplay-wise, minus the pinball machine. But you do have a good story that complements it. If you're trying to add a story to a game, then add a good story to a game. You know what I mean? I hate when games try and give you this elaborate story that isn't good, and then give you good gameplay, because people are going to ignore it because the story's bad. So, same thing here, in my opinion. So, in Sonic Adventure, you get Chaos, and like I said, kind of stolen from GT. But here's where I really start to not like Sonic, and I'm not going to go game by game anymore, just because I'm going to talk about all the characters that get introduced throughout all the games. Because starting with characters like the Cat, and Froggy, they add more and more characters that are very weak characters because they're stolen from a show known as Dragon Ball Z. The entire Sonic series turned into a clone of Dragon Ball Z. And I'm not even joking. They may have stolen a lot of stuff from other franchises too, but that doesn't forgive it. If they don't do anything original, then that's not good. The reason why Sonic Adventure is a pretty good game was because of the Gamma thing. Because that was pretty good. That was pretty powerful. Because Gamma realized that there was an animal trapped inside him, like the other robots, and he started to come to his senses, and he realized that in order to free the animal that is locked inside him, he had to commit suicide, and he did, and that was a very touching moment in the game, and I have seen that moment in the game. So therefore, that part of the game stuck with us, where other things like Big the Cat did not. So, anyways, I'm going to talk about all the characters in Sonic, and now I'm going to talk about all the characters in Dragon Ball Z, and I'm going to pair them together. So let's start with Sonic himself. Sonic himself is exactly like Goku from Dragon Ball Z, because they're both noble, they're both brave, they both want to defend the Earth, they both don't really have a reason, although they both feel that with their powers, in Sonic's case speed, in Goku's case is just sheer power and speed and just ability overall, they can do something to stop the enemy. In Sonic's case, it's always Eggman, but in Goku's case, it's multiple people. But either way, they're just like good guys. There's nothing wrong about them. There's absolutely nothing wrong about that, and that's what makes them such likable characters, because they are all like perfect to an extent. They're not entirely perfect. Well, Sonic seems to be entirely perfect, to be honest. They're like perfect characters. Although Goku, you can tell, sometimes does have weaknesses. For example, you could look at a character like Chi-Chi, and how when Goku does something nice or noble for someone else, Chi-Chi doesn't like it because he does not spend enough time with his family. So it makes it more human. It makes it seem more just believable overall. Where Sonic, it's kind of like he's just the good guy, and that's it. That's it. And maybe that's just because Dragon Ball Z is an anime, because in something like Sonic X, Sonic does make a few mistakes, but I can't really count Sonic X just because of the fact that people don't like it, and people sometimes consider it non-canon in Sonic, so I'm not going to use that as evidence because of the fact that some people consider it non-canon. But, let's see. Next character is Tails. Tails looks up to Sonic as, like, the hero, and he aspires to be like Sonic, although he never fully reaches that status. That is similar to Gohan in Dragon Ball Z. Although, Tails is not Sonic's son. But you could also say Amy is not Sonic's wife. You could say the same thing. But either way, Gohan does look up to his dad as, like, some sort of role model. He looks up to Piccolo when he's younger, which makes him a more interesting character, because you see Gohan showing a bit less mercy than, say, Goku would, because Goku's the perfect person who shows everybody mercy, even when they're the most evil people in the world. You know what I mean? But Gohan looks up to his dad like a humongous role model, like he's like a perfect person. Well, he looks up to him like he's like, oh, like you kind of like a god almost, you know what I mean? And he wants to be that person, but he just can't quite get there. Although in Dragon Ball Z, you can say that Gohan does overpower Goku's power when he turns into Super Saiyan 2 in the Cell games, but that's generally because Goku let him. It's kind of like Sonic telling Tails to, take the show. I'll stand over here. You can take the show. But in Goku's case, he knew that he couldn't turn into Super Saiyan 2 where Gohan could. And that makes Gohan a bit more of an elaborate character than Tails, which makes Tails a knockoff. You know what I mean? So, next character, Amy Rose. She can be compared to Chi-Chi. They're both the love interests of the main character, the main hero. Chi-Chi is married to Goku. Amy is in love with Sonic. The only difference between them... and that's true too, because Goku sometimes gets annoyed by Chi-Chi because Chi-Chi's like, why don't you spend time with your family? And Amy sometimes gets annoyed with Sonic when Sonic ignores her because of the fact that she's in love with him. And she wants to spend time with him, similar to how Chi-Chi wants Goku to spend time with his family. So even that is a knockoff. And then you also can consider the fact that both Chi-Chi and Amy Rose can stand up for themselves, because Amy has her hammer and she's fought in battles before. Chi-Chi has also defended people like Gohan when in that little filler episode that could be considered non-canon, when the teacher goes and tutors him and whips him into shape, in quotes, when the instructor insults Goku for being a terrible father for leaving him and blah blah blah, and then Chi-Chi gets all mad because she knows that Goku's a hero, and then she's like, nope, I'm gonna own you right now, and then she owned him. And that same thing could be said for Amy too, to be honest. Let's see, who else? I'm gonna save Shadow for last, just because Shadow's the worst knockoff of them all. Let's see, Big the Cat. People hate Big the Cat because of the fact that he's just a terrible character and his part of the game was bad and blah blah blah. He can be but once again, they just wanted his character there because of the fact that he's like Yajirobe. And Yajirobe is the guy that doesn't do anything. And in Big the Cat's case, guess what? He doesn't do anything. The only thing he does is cut off Vegeta's tail, or the whole froggy thing. Same kind of deal. He has that one little moment, and that's about it. That's it. And then the entire show of Dragon Ball Z, Yajirobe does nothing, and Big just has those fishing mini games. not cool. Then next you could go to someone along the lines of, I don't know, Cream the Rabbit and Cheese. Cream and Cheese could be considered two characters, to be honest. You could say he's like Tien and Chaozu because Cheese is like Chaozu in the way that Cream always protects Cheese and Cheese can't live without Cream and so on and so forth. Similar to Chaozu, how Chaozu gave his life for Tien because he didn't want Tien to get hurt, in the fight against Vegeta in the first season. So, once again, it's a very similar deal. Yeah. The other thing Cream could be considered to be is Bulma, but that's kind of a weak comparison. The only real difference between Cream and Tien would be the fact that Cream's a girl, and Cream's girlness mostly comes from Bulma in Dragon Ball Z, because she acts a bit like a girl. She acts like a girl. She acts a bit more immature, but she's meant to be somewhat different. They're like, okay, well, we need a character like Tien who isn't that powerful but does stuff anyway and is somewhat useful and blah blah blah. So let's take Tien. Let's turn him into a rabbit. Okay, let's turn him into a rabbit, and then let's make him a little girl. That sounds good. That sounds good enough. No, realize that. Okay, and that's Sonic Team for you. So I would say those two characters most represent that. Yeah. Rouge the Bat, that one's a bit tricky to compare to Dragon Ball Z. I would say she's just there, to be honest. Remember that Sonic Team Japan did not create Rouge. Sonic Team in Sega in America did, and Japan was unsure about it. So the fact that she was conceived in a different location could lead me to believe that she was a knockoff of someone else. And I would say that you could compare her to someone like Catwoman. I don't know, just any sort of girl villain in general that's greedy, likes money. I don't know. But not from Dragon Ball Z anyway. Just because she was created in a different location, probably, among other things. But I'm sure that, seriously, a girl who's a jewel thief. Not original. It's probably more original than some of the other characters, though. I will give her some credit. So, even though people consider her as, just the eye candy, if you will, she could also be considered one of the more original characters in the series, which is pretty sad, to be honest. Then, who else? Let's see. Knuckles. Never mention Knuckles. That's not good. Knuckles can be compared to King Piccolo. No, not King Piccolo. Piccolo Jr. Because King Piccolo was in the original Dragon Ball series. Piccolo. Because Piccolo was kind of like the bad guy initially in Dragon Ball, and then in Dragon Ball Z at the beginning, Piccolo was like, I don't really want to work with you, but I kind of have to. Kind of like that. The only real difference between Piccolo and Knuckles is like the dumbass who always gets fooled by Eggman. It's really kind of sad. So, Knuckles is compared to Piccolo. Also, his voice sounds very similar to Piccolo, which I think is funny. Sonic's voice also sounds similar to Goku. Oh my god. Whatever. Or generally does. I would have to say that it sounds most like it in the Sonic X series and stuff, which is kind of funny. But, yeah. So, Knuckles is mostly like Piccolo, although his stupidity is not inherited from Piccolo, because Piccolo's actually relatively smart, especially when he fuses with Kami, then he's like 10 times more smart. So I would have to say his stupidity comes from somewhere else, and I would just have to say it's just because they're like, what should we do for a plot line? Okay, let's take a character. Let's say, okay, Eggman's a good guy now. That's very original. I'm going to turn my new leaf. I'm a good guy now. And then in the end, you find out he's not a good guy. And it was pretty obvious that he wasn't going to be a good guy the entire time. But we're going to say it anyway. So someone had to buy it, and they were like, okay, who should we make fall for it? Amy, not too stupid. It would make it seem unbelievable. Let's take a character like Knuckles. He's powerful, and he's not Sonic, because Sonic is perfect, like Goku. Yeah, like that. So they kind of did that. Like I said, when you knock off a character, sometimes you don't knock it off completely. But someone is a very big knockoff. I'm trying to think of any other real characters. Like Vanilla, nah, not really important. You know what I mean? They're just kind of there. A lot of the characters in the Sonic series are just kind of like there. Like you could, Vanilla isn't that important, so it wasn't really important who she knocked off. And you could say once again that she knocked off of Bulma, but not really. Not really. I mean maybe. Because Vanilla was always kind of helpful, but not really. I don't know. In Sonic X, you could say that she was more helpful, but once again, not really. And Bulma did a lot more than, say, Vanilla did. You know what I mean? So that one's kind of hard to tell. I would say that Chi-Chi does less than Bulma in Dragon Ball Z, and Vanilla does a lot less than Amy. So it's kind of hard to tell. Vanilla's just kind of like an unimportant character, and she was just kind of thrown in just to be thrown in. So I can't consider her a knockoff just because of the fact that she's a helpful character. It's kind of like taking someone like Marin, Krillin's love interest, right? You could take someone like Marin and say, oh, she's a very important character in the show, and obviously Marin is like Rouge. I'm not even gonna say that because she's not an important character. And you could say, yeah, Rouge is a knockoff of Marin because Marin's greedy and so is Rouge, but she's not a jewel thief. And Rouge is a jewel thief. So I'm not even going to make that comparison. That's too much of a stretch. And I'm not going to do something that just I'm not going to set it to a structure, you know what I mean? Because that makes my argument less powerful. So I'm saying that most of the characters from Sonic were taken from Dragon Ball Z. But there are some characters that weren't. And I do have to give them some credit. So someone like Rouge is not taken from Dragon Ball Z. Definitely not. Because there's no one in Dragon Ball Z that's a jewel thief. There isn't. So why would I bother trying to make that stretch? You know what I mean? However, the jewels overall, the Chaos Emeralds, they are a knockoff of Dragon Ball Z because they're Dragon Balls. The only thing is they're slightly less powerful because the Dragon Balls can grant you any wish you want, where the Chaos Emeralds don't. They just don't. They're just powerful. They grant power. Which is important because having the Dragon Balls grants you power too. You could wish for immortality, for crying out loud. That was the whole concept of the first 3 seasons of Dragon Ball Z. So they are about power, and the Chaos Emeralds are about power. It was just simplifying the knockoff, making it more of a knockoff. Instead of saying grant you multiple wishes, it's just, yep, they're power. They're powerful. That's it. So, yeah. And I will admit, granting you wishes isn't that original of Dragon Ball Z, but it really did work. And you do have to give it some credit. The whole 3 wishes thing really got unoriginal with Disney, and Dragon Ball was created before a lot of the Disney things came out, like Aladdin. So the whole Genie and the Lamp thing wasn't really that gimmicky or unoriginal until Disney, and Dragon Ball came out before Disney. So you have to give them credit for that. So I'm not saying the Dragon Balls are unoriginal, to be honest. But the Chaos Emeralds, they are. And besides, I'm not talking about Dragon Ball Z here, really. I'm talking more about Sonic overall. It just happens to be that Sonic is a knockoff of Dragon Ball Z. So the last character is Shadow, and Shadow I'm going to be talking about for the next 20 minutes, probably. Holy crap, I've already been talking for 33 minutes. I really have a lot to talk about, don't I? So, Shadow, he is a knockoff of... Well, Shadow is a knockoff of Vegeta, and it's really sad, to be honest, because Vegeta is a fantastic character in Dragon Ball Z. He's probably, personally, the second best character, because Majin Buu was just amazing. I'm serious, if you have not watched Dragon Ball Z, I don't care whether you watch well, you should watch the entire show, but the last okay, fine, you could say the last 2 seasons, but I'll say the last 3 seasons anyway. The last 3 seasons of the show are by far the best of the show, because it not only wrapped the entire show up perfectly, except maybe the last 2 episodes. I mean, Oob, that was pretty not very original, but well, not it was original. It just wasn't powerful like say the end of actually fighting Boo was. I think it would have been better had they not had that, to be honest. I think they were just kind of like, we need a few more episodes, so let's just add that. I don't know whether that was the case at the end of the manga or not. I never really checked. But I think it would have just been better to defeat Boo with the way they did. And I'm not going to tell you how they did, because it was fantastic. And I'm not talking about Dragon Ball Z. That's going to be one of my future rants anyway. But point is that Vegeta is one of the most powerful one of the greatest characters in the show or the manga, whichever you want to go by, because Vegeta was originally in the first season or the first bit of the story anyway, he was a complete villain because he came to Earth and he wanted to wish for immortality with the Dragon Balls, and they stopped him. But, however, later on in the show, starting around Season 2, Season 3, he started fighting on the Z Fighter's side, and this was because of Frieza, and he hated Frieza because Frieza killed the Saiyan race, and Vegeta was the Prince of all Saiyans, yada yada yada. Vegeta hated that his planet was blown up, and he wanted to get revenge on Frieza, even though he had to work for Frieza. Blah, blah, blah. And so he hated Frieza. And so Vegeta fighted with the Z Fighters for Frieza. However, it wasn't Vegeta that killed Frieza, it was Goku. And Goku didn't really have anything against Frieza, making Vegeta more mad because Goku didn't really have a motivation for fighting Frieza. However, he still defeated him. And also, Vegeta's the Prince of all Saiyans, and yet he did not achieve Super Saiyan before Goku, which really pissed him off. So yeah, and so throughout the entire show, there's this rivalry between Vegeta and Goku, although Vegeta still manages to fight for the Z Fighters, and at first he was kind of like an anti-hero kind of thing, like, okay, I'm gonna just fight for them, but later on he develops a family with Bulma, and then Trunks, and blah blah blah, and then by the end of the show, he becomes a good guy, and it was proven this when using the Dragon Balls, they wished everyone that was killed by Majin Buu back to life except for the bad guys, and Vegeta was also brought back to life, and so that proved that Vegeta was now a good guy. And so by the end of the show, he was a good guy. However, he was still a shady character the entire show, and that made him the way he was. It made him Vegeta, basically. Shadow's almost the same thing, and by that I mean Shadow's a shady character, Shadow is an anti-hero, Shadow sometimes works for sometimes the bad guy, sometimes the good guy, and yeah, Shadow also has some anger and frustration with his past, very similar to Vegeta, although Shadow loses his memory a lot more because of the fact that he's basically an android, and so that makes him honestly a less powerful character, because if you keep forgetting things, then you don't have time to develop your thoughts, and so if you can't develop as a character, then that makes you a weak character, and that's exactly what they did with Shadow. They made him a less powerful character, and that really is annoying, because Shadow could have been a fantastic character if they built him correctly. I wouldn't care if he's a knockoff of Dragon Ball Z if he was as good as Vegeta was, and also original. But he wasn't, and that really is bad. So, yeah. But they're very similar in the way they are. They're on the same race. Goku and Vegeta are both Saiyans, and Shadow and Sonic are both hedgehogs, although Shadow is I don't know the best way, a man-made hedgehog, basically. They both are almost equal in power, although the hero is always slightly more powerful, which is Sonic and Goku. They're slightly more powerful than Shadow and Vegeta, because in Sonic Adventure 2, Shadow was inferior in power to Sonic. However, they did team up at the end to defeat the Bio Lizard, similar to Goku and Vegeta defeating Majin Buu at the end of Dragon Ball Z. Yay! Unoriginalness! Yay! So same kind of deal. And then what else? I mean, they both fight the same way. They're both fast. They both, all the same thing. The only thing that Shadow has that's that Sonic doesn't have is Chaos Control. And unfortunately for Vegeta, there is nothing that Vegeta has that Goku doesn't, which makes him a more powerful character because that's the way they wanted to design him. Shadow is made to be just kind of like a knockoff, basically. The guy that's like Sonic, but isn't. And they did that with Metal Sonic too, and then they just never brought him back after Shadow was created because they're like, oh, Shadow's the best character ever, oh, but he wasn't. And then they're like, and now in Sonic 4 Episode 2, they're like, we're gonna bring back Metal Sonic because people liked him from the 2D games, and I'm very, very happy that they did that. So Shadow's are basically a knockoff of Vegeta, and if you have any arguments against that, then feel free to argue against that. I just hate when Shadow fanboys are all like, Shadow's the most powerful character, the best character in the Sonic series, because he's so shady, and he forgets things, and the fact that he forgets things makes him such a powerful character. He's not a powerful character. He isn't. He always forgets things. That makes him a weaker character. A powerful character needs time to develop, but when Shadow develops, he forgets those developments, and therefore is back at square one. It's like they're taking the entire show of Dragon Ball Z and repeating it over and 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 over again. It's not cool. It's the same story with Shadow. Shadow starts out as the bad guy. He works for the bad guys, and then he finds his own reasons to fight for the good guys, and then he fights for the good guys, and then somehow he got something out of it, and then he gets sealed back up into this cryogenic freezing thing and loses all of his memory, and then you're back at square one. That's not original. It is not original. It's not a good character. It's not. So whatever you want to say, if you don't like that connection to Dragon Ball Z, then there you go. I don't care. I believe the Sonic series is a knockoff of Dragon Ball Z, but you do not have to believe that. My point is that the Sonic series overall is a weak series because it is knocked off. But you could also argue that the Sonic series isn't a good series because it simply is not a good series. The story in the series is not powerful. And it isn't, to be honest. The only story that really was powerful was Gamma, and that was because the story was original. I'm sorry, the fact you never have seen ever in a game a robot committing suicide to free the animal that was inside of it. You'd never seen that before, and that was very original, and that's what made it touching. However, in every other Sonic game, nothing. So I could keep going with the Dragon Ball Z references. I mean, Silver's future Trunks, Marine the raccoon isn't important, but you could say that she's like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. The Dragon Ball Z references aren't my point anymore. I just had to prove that within these, 20 minutes to tell you that. So, I don't know. I can't believe I've been talking for 42 minutes about this. I really hate the Sonic series, don't I? So, anyways, let's move on to the story of the other games, and then I'll stop talking about it. So let's see. Where should I start? Sonic 06. Sonic 06 was a weak game, not because it was a knockoff of anything really, just because of the fact that it all of a sudden threw humans in there for no apparent reason. And the gameplay was bad, which is why people hate it, but the story was bad too. I'm sorry. If you can't throw humans randomly in there. And I think they did that mostly because of Sonic X, but I mean, come on. The entire you know what I mean? You can't just throw in some random princess. You can't. In Sonic Adventure, yes, there was people. Yes, but the people were there just to be people. The damsel in distress in Sonic 06 was not an important character. Sonic had no connection to Princess, whatever her name was. Elise, maybe? Whatever. Sonic had no connection to her. And the fact that he had no connection to her leads me to believe that the game sucked, as story-wise. So, there you go. Sonic Adventure had already told you about Chaos. Sonic Adventure 2 already told you about Shadow. I could go back further. Sonic 06... Sonic Unleashed, that's about the werehog. Once again, werewolf stories have been around for ages. You could even go by the whole thing with Wallace and Gromit movie. can't remember what that's called I have that movie somewhere around here. Whatever. It was a good movie anyway. It was about just never mind. I'm not gonna stop. But seriously, the fact that you turn into a werewolf at night is not original. It's the werehog. It's obviously a knockoff of a werewolf. And then when you take that concept and make bad gameplay out of it, that's just not cool. Now, Sonic Unleashed may have had good Sonic sections gameplay-wise, but I'm sorry, if your main concept of the game, right, if your main story element of the game is turning to werehog, and that concept did not have good gameplay, then that's not good. It's like saying, here's your story, but the gameplay that derives from the story is bad. It's not good. It's like saying this is called macaroni and cheese, but the cheese is 5 years old. Then you're not going to have good macaroni and cheese. You know what I'm saying? So, I hope you got that concept, because if you don't, then that's not good. So, yeah, let's see what else. Sonic Colors. I think they just... I don't know. Sonic Colors. It was a pretty good game. I have to give it a little bit of credit. But I still... Just on the game overall. Story was okay. Amusement park in space, relatively original, but still, it was kind of like nothing heartbreaking. But then again, Mario wasn't heartbreaking either. It was mostly for the gameplay. So, and then that's where the Sonic series has had a problem is that it tries to be like Mario. Mario doesn't need a good, really powerful story. It just needs good gameplay. So, but the thing with Mario is it has a good enough story for us to live with. Super Mario Galaxy had a good story, but the gameplay was so good that it didn't matter whether it was a good story or a bad story. Super Mario Galaxy 2 had a somewhat weaker story, but it was good enough. It wasn't just no story, or it wasn't a bad story. It was a good story. It just wasn't a great story. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, Metal Gear Solid 4 story, or Bioshock level story, or anything like that. But for Sonic, the problem is that the gameplay in 3D Sonic games, people say, are not very that good. And so when you take a bad story, which is what I'm critiquing anyway, the story, then you don't have that gameplay, which is why people don't like 3D Sonic games. But I'm just saying, overall, the Sonic series is bad. And now I'm going to move into other mediums before I finish this. Other mediums, anime, Sonic X. Yeah, Sonic X was bad. Why was it bad? It was bad because they threw random human characters into it, along with all the unoriginal characters that we love from the Sonic series, like Amy, and Cream, and Cheese, and Vanilla, and Amy Rose, and Big the Cat, and Rouge the Bat, and Shadow. I hate Shadow. Anyway, point is that characters like Chris and Mr. Tanaka, I think it was, and the grandfather, and it was like bad. It was really bad. And Chris, we all hate Chris because he's like the whiny baby character who misses Sonic, and that one episode at the end of the second season where he freaking turns off the machine just because he can't let Sonic go. Are you kidding me? That is so stupid. And yeah, that sticks with us, but he's a bad character. He's just a whiny kid. And maybe the creators wanted it to piss us off. I don't know. But still, that episode, oh my god. And then the entire third season was bad, just because it was a knockoff of Dragonball Z at that point. It really was, once again. Or, for that matter, any other space collecting items story ever created. And there's a lot of them, too. Kirby and the Crystal Shards, even. You could even go there. Any 3D Super Mario game except 3D Land. You could do anything really, and it'd still be a knockoff of it because it's just, oh, we're going to space, we're fighting some guy, and collecting things. Yeah. Oh yeah, and Tails and Cosmo develop a romance that's really bad, and Tails refuses to say "I love you" at the end of the show just to keep it G-rated, which was so stupid. I was just like, but you're my friend! But you're my friend! Oh, you're my friend! I can't let you die! Ah! No, just say I freaking am in love with you. Come on. You know they're in love. Even a 6-year-old would know that they're in love. What's so bad about saying I love you? Anyway, pissed me off about that show too. So yeah, that's Sonic X for you. But the one thing that pisses me off more than the TV shows, Sonic Underground can't critique because it was an original series and that was pretty good. Although it got canceled because it wasn't matching Sega at all, and most of the characters were completely original. Yada yada yada. The thing that pisses me off is the comics, because the best Sonic thing that has ever been created was Sonic Sat AM, right? Because I talked about how good the story was, how good the characters were, etc., etc. And then they take it and they blah blah bad. And by blah 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 bad, I mean Ken Penders, because Ken Penders basically added a bunch of characters from Sega and made it bad. Just made it bad. Because it was Ken Penders who threw in Amy Rose. It was Ken Penders who threw in Rouge the Bat. It was all Ken Penders was the one that was like, okay, we're gonna make this more like the Sega games. What Ken Penders didn't realize was the Sega games are bad. They have bad stories. Big the Cat is a bad character. Shadow is a bad character. So you throw those into the comic, which has good characters from a good show. It just wasn't good. And then it just turned into a complete cacophony of bunch of characters. I mean, the Sonic comics have more characters than any other thing on the planet, to be honest. Except maybe, like, Marvel overall. Overall. You know what I mean? But that's overall, so it isn't like one consecutive comic. The Sonic comics have so many characters, and it's not good either, because, to be honest, all those characters that just were thrown in from Sega, it just makes the comic weaker and weaker. You have characters like Amy that just pop out of nowhere. I hate Amy. And it's just like, you could have made it good. You could have made the season 3 that we all wanted. But no, you had to throw in a bunch of Sega characters. That was really nice of you. Really nice of you. And they didn't. Sad. And so it just, yeah, not good. Not good. And so what happened is later on they threw in some really good characters like, say, Scourge, the Anti-Sonic, because the Anti-Sonic appeared in the early comics, just as kind of like a little gimmick. And you know, it's okay to throw in a gimmick in a comic. I'm okay with that, you know what I mean? Comics are meant to have those really elaborate stories that, you know, with all the story arcs and all that, and they aren't meant to be like something you could take and just read the whole thing, and then it's like the best story ever. It isn't planned out like that, you know what I mean? You don't write the beginning of the series thinking about the end of the series, because you want to keep publishing issues. Or something like the TV show, you can say, okay, we're going to end it now, and then we're going to move on and make something completely different, you know what I mean? With comics, it's about maintaining your issues, because you know that if you stop posting issues, then people are going to stop reading your stuff. And it's about just making that continuous profit, where with a TV show, it can end with a good thing, you know what I mean? And then you can make another TV show. It's like Avatar The Last Airbender, and now they're making the other show that's based off of Avatar, you know what I mean? The same Avatar The Last Airbender crowd are going to be watching the sequel one, except they might be older, so it might have made sense to make it target an older audience, maybe. I don't know. But people who liked Avatar The Last Airbender on Nickelodeon are the same kind of people that are going to like the new one that's on Nickelodeon that I don't know about, because I didn't really like Avatar The Last Airbender. So it's the same kind of thing, like, you know, whatever. People who watched Dragon Ball Z started watching Dragon Ball GT, you know what I mean? Same kind of thing, where with comics, it's not like you can make a sequel comic. And that's why something like, say, when they started over with all of the, I think it was Marvel. Was it Marvel? I can't remember whether it was Marvel or not, but they started over from one with like Batman and Superman and all that. They started over with one recently. So they started the whole thing over, and they're going to rewrite some of the stories and stuff like that. And I'm guessing that's just because a lot of the stories they just couldn't do anymore. They couldn't keep adding on characters. They decided to rewrite it, which makes sense, to be honest. I'm okay with that. But it's why people might not read that anymore, because they like the old one. You know what I mean? Same kind of thing. So I'm okay with some of those gimmicky things anyway, because I went on the gimmicky thing path, and that wasn't good, because I'm trying to talk about why Sonic's a bad series. I mean, the comics. There's all the random Sega characters that were thrown in, not very good. And it just made the comic weaker overall. So I could read the earlier issues as much as I wanted to, but when you get to the later issues, I just didn't like it. And then you get the more recent issues like the Ian Flynn ones, and then you get a bit more exciting. But just because of the fact that all these random characters are thrown in, I'm not gonna completely blame it on Ken Penders. Sorry for, bombing Ken Penders. It was probably pressure from Sega too. Sega was like, "Oh, your comic's selling well. Let's advertise your characters in it. That's a good idea, right? That's a good idea, right?" No, it made the comic weaker. So the stories got a bit better, but it still wasn't good because all those characters were already thrown in. So you have characters like Rouge and Shadow that don't show up ever in the comic, but yet they get thrown in anyway. And then you have characters like Amy Rose that are now part of the main squad when they shouldn't be, because in the TV show they weren't part of the main squad, and early on they weren't part of the main squad. So it just is like, eh. So, yeah. And then there were some things they did with the comic, like with Nicole turning into the Lynx. That really pissed me off, to be honest, because she's just a computer. I hated when she turned into a Lynx, because I was like, oh no, now they're just adding another character for people to draw a Sonic hentai of. You know what I mean? So, yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to say, really. I'm almost done here. I've been talking for an hour. My voice is getting tired, and I guess just in summary, I hate Sonic the Hedgehog. I hate the series overall. I'm not saying it's because of the gameplay, because the 2D Sonic games, like I said, I played the Sonic Advance series. I played all three of them. I've never beaten any of them, but I've played all three of them, and all three of them play well. I don't know how the 3D Sonic games don't play well generally, but I mean, the 2D ones do play well. So I mean, that's why people like Sonic the Hedgehog from the beginning, and it's kind of sad, really, because people like Sonic the Hedgehog because Sonic's at AM. People like Sonic the Hedgehog because of the 2D Sonic games that were actually pretty good. You know what I mean? Like, I can't say how good or bad they are because, like I said, I haven't played the old 2D Sonic games. But, they're good. They have some good, probably have some good solid gameplay, which is why people play them a lot. But then you get to then what happened is people became Sonic fans against Mario fans. It was like Mario fans versus Sonic fans. And what Nintendo did is they made Mario 64, which revolutionized the 3D platformer. And then Sega made Sonic Adventure, which contained fishing minigames, and Sonic Adventure 2 created the most unoriginal character in the entire series. So, yeah. Nintendo took a better direction with Mario, and that's why Mario's a better series overall, and that's also why Sonic just isn't good. I don't like Sonic. I'm sorry. If you like Sonic, then hooray, but you need to tell me why. And that's something I'm going to probably end off all these rants on, is if you disagree, you have to tell me why. Because I hate it when people are like, I disagree with you. That doesn't get you anywhere. If you say I disagree with you and talk for an hour like I did, then there you go. If you disagree with me and talk for 5 minutes, then that's good enough for me. If you disagree with me and talk for 30 seconds and they're valid reasons, then I'll respect your opinion. But if you just say Sonic's good and that's it, or, why are you hating on Shadow and that's it, or Shadow's badass and that's it, that's not good enough. it's not good enough. If you want to say, well, I don't have any reasons because that's how much I hate Sonic, but I mean, if you have a valid reason, then you feel free to say it in the comments, or feel free to talk to me about it. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what's really going to happen with this, whether it's going to be a podcast, whether it's going to be on YouTube, I don't know. I also don't know when it's even going to go up, but yeah. So before this turns into an hour, I'm going to say that's it. And that is my first rant on why Sonic sucks. So if you like Sonic, then hooray for you, but I hate him. Goodbye, folks. I'm MML. I've been talking for an hour, as of right now. So, that's it. I hope you enjoyed my rant. If you listened this far, congratulations. You like listening to rants. If you didn't listen for the hour, then you're probably not listening to what I'm saying right now. But if you did listen for the hour, then good for you. I'm glad you wasted an hour of your life, but I'm also glad that you're willing to listen to my opinion if you're a Sonic fanboy and you want to know why I hate Sonic so much. And that's all my reasons, really. I completely improvised this. I didn't, write a script or anything for it, because that's not the point of a rant. A rant is just to keep talking and talking and talking. A rant isn't meant to be written down on a script. I could do that, but it just, I don't know. And then maybe I could condense this down to 15 minutes if I wrote it down into a script, but that's just not fun. So I'm going to let you go. I'm going to stop talking now, so, I don't know how to really end this off, but we'll see you next time on MML's Rants. I don't know what I'm going to talk about next, just really something that's been bugging me, or something that I really believe in. And this is something I really believe in. I believe that Sonic's a bad character, and I believe that the Sonic series is bad overall. There you go. See ya. I'm MML.